Well, all right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's information session about the open position of the engineering librarian at the University of Louisville. My name is Tessa Withorn, and I'm the science librarian and an assistant professor here in the Research Assistance and Instruction Department of Ekstrom Library, and I'm also the chair of the search committee. Everyone on the call here with their cameras on are part of our search committee, and some of them will introduce themselves throughout the session, but I want to introduce two more of our members. So I want to say thank you to Matthew Roth for helping us with our tech support today. Matthew, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm tech support here at U of L, and I am the staff representative on this committee.
Great. And then Alex.
Hey everyone, welcome. I am Alex Howard. I'm the business and entrepreneurship librarian, as well as the engaged learning coordinator at the University of Louisville Libraries. So I'm part of the search committee. Unfortunately, I have to teach an MBA class tonight, so I'm going to be headed out here shortly, but I wanted to say hello and introduce myself.
Great, thank you. And just a few housekeeping notes to get started. You're welcome to have your camera on or off, whatever you feel comfortable with. We do ask that you remain muted for the first part of the session. But then at the end, we're going to have plenty of time to answer your questions. We do have the Q&A feature enabled, so that's the Q&A button down at the bottom of your window screen. We do ask that you use that for your questions just so we can keep track. And it's also nice that you can ask a question anonymously if you'd like. There's a little checkbox there. So feel free to add your questions as you think of them or wait at the end. And then you're welcome to also unmute and ask us questions at the end as well. But let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to expand a little bit on some of the points of the position description. So as the engineering librarian, you would be primarily responsible for serving as a liaison librarian for the Speed School of Engineering. And I'll talk a little bit more about that school in a moment. But this is really typical liaison librarian duties of reference instruction and outreach. So I, of course, love reference and instruction, but I do want to note that I'm also a recent hire. I started here in January, and I've really enjoyed outreach at this university so far. There are lots of fun opportunities to go to events and connect with students and faculty, and that's one thing I've really enjoyed so far. However, this position does have a lot of opportunities to develop some more emerging services in libraries. So I've also taken on the role of data services coordinator for our main campus. And in this role, I've been building up researcher educational materials like research guides and workshops and videos and things of that nature about data best practices, data management best practices. And we're also starting to deliver some services like doing data management plan reviews. So we're looking for someone who would be excited to partner with me and other folks in RAI to expand our data services, particularly for STEM researchers. And this can really be based on the person in this position's interests and strengths. So for example, this semester I developed a STEM Scholars Workshop series where we looked at topics like AI for research and publishing, research impact, data management, but there are lots of other topics that I think researchers on our campus are really interested in engaging with the library about, such as data visualization or different tools for data analysis. So there may be opportunities to collaborate across educational programs that way. But I'm also glad Alex is here as well because there are some opportunities to collaborate with Alex and myself to really help elevate innovation and research innovation on our campus. So we've had some conversations about how the person in this position could develop some expertise over time in areas like research commercialization or patenting, which I think aligns very well with the Speed School of Engineering faculty. But again, those are just ideas for now, but something we've been thinking about. I also just want to say a few words about the Speed School of Engineering to give you a better sense of your liaison area. So the Speed School has majors and research areas in all of the things listed here. I won't list them all out, but it does span a broad range of engineering like bioengineering, computer science, industrial mechanical engineering. And the Speed School is rather large. So one of the reasons why we decided to split the science and the engineering librarian between two positions is because there are about 1,900 undergraduates, 800 graduates, and 125 faculty. So there's lots of opportunities to do research appointments, instruction, consultations with faculty, and all of these areas. I do want to note that the library has had an ongoing relationship with the Speed School, so they really are excited to continue to engage with the library and have a point person who meets their research needs and areas as well. Just a few other initiatives in the Speed School that are interesting to note. They do have a strong industry partnership program, and they have an annual engineering design and innovation showcase. And they also have a engineering garage makerspace that's for Speed School students. So there are opportunities to collaborate there. I'm now going to turn it over to Rob to talk more about our department.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Rob Detmering, and I'm the head of Ekstrom Libraries Research Assistance and Instruction Department, or RAI, as you can see that it's called there, and we'll probably refer to it more today. So I'm the direct supervisor for all of the faculty librarians in our department. So I will be supervising the engineering librarian position directly that we're talking about today. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I've been at U of L as a librarian for over 14 years now. So I feel like I have a lot of experience mentoring and working with new and early career librarians in particular, and helping them succeed in terms of their day-to-day work, as well as be successful in the tenure and promotion process that we have as faculty. I'm happy to answer any questions about my supervisory style or other aspects of the department later in the session. But I just wanted to sort of note here at the beginning that we think of ourselves, and I feel that we are a very collaborative and team-oriented department. But we also provide our liaison librarians with a lot of autonomy to shape their role based on the needs of their academic units and the students and faculty that they work with. And as a supervisor, I do really try to strike a balance between giving direction and advice to people, but also really allowing our librarians to carry their ideas forward and develop their individual initiatives as they see fit and as appropriate for their areas. So as you can see on the current slide here, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about our department and our initiatives. This is the rest of RAI, in addition to the people that are here on the search committee today. And so to give you a better sense of how we operate, our department has evolved a lot over the last decade or so towards a more proactive model of providing research support based to a large degree on librarian outreach and communication with the academic departments that they work with. So our past service model, which this sort of contrasts with, was more oriented towards a traditional reference desk that responded to every type of patron question, whether it was related to research or not. So technology questions, questions about building locations, questions about printing and so forth. We used to answer it all. But in our current model, we focus a lot more on responding specifically to research questions only for undergraduates, graduate students, faculty, community researchers, and really anybody that's doing research at the university. So while we still respond to immediate research inquiries at our desk, which is now sort of in a glass office area, and we respond to questions through email, chat, and phone, we've ultimately moved more towards what we think of as an appointment-based model, along with various embedded and collaborative approaches that allow our librarians to provide more in-depth and really more targeted and specialized research assistance and instruction across a wide range of areas. And like most academic libraries, our research appointments and the other services that we offer are done both in person and online. And the people that you see on the screen right now are obviously all involved in various aspects of this work. So over the past few years and really looking forward to the future, RAI has been focusing on some key strategic priorities in alignment with larger library goals, as well as some of our university's strategic objectives around research, student success, and some other areas. And you can kind of see those strategic priorities or strategic areas showcased here on the screen. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more about each one of these areas. So part of this strategic work includes an enhanced model of research support that we're calling Scholar Services that you can find more information about on our department website. This model emphasizes more direct librarian support and more embedded librarian support for faculty research through a variety of services, such as collaborating on systematic reviews, providing initial literature search results to faculty, consulting on data management, as Tessa mentioned earlier, and some other things that we're working on. And our goal with this Scholar Services model is really to use our librarian expertise to support scholarly productivity at the university in new and innovative ways. And then one of our other strategic priorities is student success and retention, which are obviously key areas of interest for our university and many other universities. In our department, this work includes our information literacy program, which is very active, also various online learning tools that we create and maintain, and some new initiatives that we have been leading in our department through some of our particular librarians working on promoting affordable learning resources on campus, which is really tied to student success and retention, and then supporting the university's focus on engaged learning experiences for students. We have a Center for Engaged Learning on campus, and this is a big priority right now at U of L. And then finally, I just wanted to mention our role in collections. So while we do have a separate collection development department in our library, our liaison librarians are pretty actively involved in promoting collections to faculty and students, advocating for new resources where they think it's appropriate, and then evaluating our existing resources as they come up for renewal. And from a strategic standpoint, in recent years, we've been focusing a lot of our efforts around promoting collections oriented towards diversity and encouraging our faculty to make recommendations that will diversify our collections and support their teaching activities that advance equity and inclusion within the curriculum. So I will now turn it over to, I believe, is Melissa next or Courtney?
I think
Yeah.
it's me.
Okay, great. So,
Yeah, thank you, Rob, and welcome everybody. My name is Melissa Lanning, and I am actually not a member of the RAI department. I work with all of our departments in the libraries on recruitment, particularly of new librarians. So when you apply for our job, I'm going to be the first person who will respond to you and let you know if your application is complete, if you need to add any additional documentation, and just kind of help guide you through that process. If you have any questions later on about the application system, the online system, feel free to reach out to me. I think Tessa's going to supply some information at the end how you could reach us, and we're happy to answer that. Our system is not completely intuitive, so we're really happy to help people through that process. Kind of going along with introducing myself, unlike some other people on the call, I am not a native Louisvillian. And I came here many years ago for a specific job with fully intending to leave after a few years, after I gained some experience and move on. But the working climate in the libraries, the supportive collegial working climate in the libraries, and the really great quality of life in the city changed my plans completely. And after many years, I am still here. So I think Courtney will be talking later on in more depth about the city, but it really is a wonderful place to live and to have a career. So in front of you, you see the library system at U of L, which consists of Ekstrom, which is the main campus library and where this position is located, as well as the 5 other libraries that are part of the system, which serve specific disciplines and communities in our campus. The law library is actually administratively separate from the rest of the library system. They report to the dean of the law school, but we have quite a bit of collaboration across all of the campuses. And I can see, in addition to working with Tessa, I imagine there would be some really interesting opportunities to collaborate with many of the libraries, but particularly the health sciences library, because of the bioengineering program that is a cross-disciplinary program. So, and that's something that we very much welcome. Within the library system, I'll just say one more thing about the system and then we can move on. We have 43 librarians, or 48 actually, if counting law, and 57 staff members. And I know that prior to this session, Tessa received a question in writing about the diversity and the composition of our faculty and staff. And so I'm going to address that very briefly. I would have to say, in honesty, it's a work in progress. It's something that we're seriously committed to. RAI happens to be one of the most diverse departments in our library system and is, I think, a very welcoming environment from people who come from all different backgrounds, walks of life, racial groups, ethnicities, et cetera. So I feel it's a really good place for anybody who's interested in the job. Having said all of that, my primary goal for my portion of this presentation today is to talk a little bit about what it means to be a tenure track librarian in our system. And again, I'm always happy to talk about this endlessly afterwards. But librarians here do have faculty status, which means that we have faculty titles, instructor, assistant professor, associate professor, etc. And we have responsibilities in three broad areas. The first is the operational duties of the position, and that really is about 80% of your time or effort is spent on the responsibilities outlined in the job description, devoted to being the engineering librarian. But in addition to that, this position and all of our library faculty positions are responsible for developing a record of research and sharing ideas through research, through publication and presentation. And we're also expected to serve on committees, both in the libraries and the university, and to participate in professional organizations that are relevant to the position. All of our annual and promotional reviews revolve around those three areas, and ultimately is the basis of a tenure review, which begins after 5 years of service in the position. For somebody who's new to academic librarianship, that can be kind of a daunting prospect. But if there's anything that I want you to remember about what I'm saying this afternoon, it's that when we hire someone, we are really committed to their success in their job and in their professional life. And we will do everything that we can to support them, you know, in their progress toward tenure and after tenure as well. I mean, I think that hopefully professional growth happens throughout your career life cycle. With that in mind, we provide a lot of support for our librarians through formal and informal mentoring, funding for professional conferences and continuing education, tuition benefits for the employee and family members, dependents. And I think you'll probably hear this from a lot of us, a very strong culture of collaboration. And I think that's particularly true for the RAI department, which, as Rob says, has a really successful track record of mentoring people through successful tenure review. So this is not something you would be doing alone. I mentioned ranks before, and so I want to expand on that a little bit for this position. This is an entry level or early career position, so we anticipate hiring at the instructor or assistant professor level. And so people always want to know about compensation. So let me address that a little bit. Compensation for the successful candidate in the job will be tied to rank, as well as the skills, experience, and achievements that they already have at the time of hire. So the salary that's posted in the job is a minimum. It's the floor. There is some room for negotiation beyond that. So that's something to keep in mind. In addition to compensation, however, I do want to emphasize that we have pretty great benefits, as we call it in higher education, a total rewards package that includes such things as multiple health plans, domestic partner benefits, flexible scheduling that includes up to 2 remote days of work per week, great employer match on retirement, and that may not be totally meaningful for a very new librarian, but trust me, over the years, it will make you happy. And very generous paid leave. All of our librarians have 22 days of vacation every year. In addition to that, this past year, there were 19.5 paid university holidays, and there's also administrative leave for travel and other professional activities. So I think those are the main items I want to share at this point. Again, happy to answer questions later on, but I'm now going to turn it over to Courtney.
Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Sharif. I'm Strategic Initiatives Librarian / Diversity Resident, and also serve as co-liaison for the College of Education. Like Tessa, I am also a fairly recent new hire. I started in January, but I was born and raised here in Louisville. I've lived and attended schools in several neighborhoods, including the West End, Portland, Shively, the Highlands, and Old Louisville. Each have their own feel. And Louisville, like any city, has its own issues and challenges. I would certainly be probably grossly negligent if I didn't acknowledge the murder of Breonna Taylor, for example, in 2020. But I'm personally also impressed with the way that the city continues to evolve and solidify its relevancy in the 21st century. We're a nationally and internationally recognized city. We're ranked 27th most populous city in the US. We're the 11th most affordable largest metro area in the nation, and was recently ranked number 4 most beautiful and affordable place to live by Travel and Leisure magazine, which noted our expansive park systems, our walking trails, our median housing rate of $163,000, cost of living, and the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is also about $1,200. So that's tying that in with the low cost of living. We've made Livability's list of best places to live in 2023. They describe the city as dynamic and an inclusive place to call home. We were ranked number 4 on Realtor.com's list of top 10 housing markets positioned for growth, and number 9 on his list of pet-friendly cities in America. We are also silver certified by LEED, which stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, for our work in increasing sustainability and climate resilience throughout the city. 2 years in a row, we've been named for the Carbon Disclosure Project's A-list, which is a list of less than 100 cities around the country that are developing robust climate change strategies and transparency around that. In 9 consecutive years, we've been the recipient of the Matt Conway Award for Excellence in Economic Development. That's rewarded based on capital investment and new jobs. So there's definitely a vibrant economy here. We have major corporations headquartered here, including UPS, Ford, GE, Humana, Norton's Healthcare, Brown-Forman, and others. And then, of course, I'm a librarian, so I just have to toss this in. Our free public library system this year earned the 2023 Innovation Award for Advocacy and Awareness from the Urban Libraries Council for a project they did last year in partnership with the Courier Journal. That's our newspaper, which was a mobile newsroom classroom. And then just some additional highlights. There's a lot of culture here. There's, of course, bourbon. There's museums, the ballet, the theater. For concerts, we are increasingly a destination for major artists, performers, and festivals for all genres. And one underrated perk that most people aren't aware of, but you are often able to see big name stars at small city prices. I've already kind of touched on nature, of course, our parks and walking trails. We also have caves. So that's a cool nature-y feature that a lot of cities can't necessarily say they boast. We have Mammoth Cave, which is the longest cave system in the world here in Kentucky. If you're into traveling, we're also fairly centrally located. We're 3 hours away, for example, from St. Louis, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, and Nashville, and then about a 5-hour drive, depending on how fast you go, to Chicago. And then the last thing I'll point out, or last feature, is Derby. Most people know it as a race. That's the first Friday in May, but in actuality, it's about a month-long series of events for all ages, including my personal favorite, which is Thunder Over Louisville. That's the largest annual fireworks display in the country, not just in Louisville. But the festivities also include a variety of activities, including a mini marathon, a biking tour, a parade, a hot air balloon race, and so much more. So, like I said, the city continues to transform itself. These are just some of the highlights. If you ever want other perspectives beyond, any of us, the Chamber of Commerce also has a page. I'll put the link in the chat here that includes over 80 Louisvillians that are known as city champs. So you can email them. They answer questions, they offer suggestions, or they, just give their own personal take of the city. And so I certainly encourage you to reach out to any of them. And then I'll also put some additional resources about Louisville in the chat too, but I'll put that one first.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. And we'll conclude with plenty of time to answer your specific questions. I am just going to say a few words that you're welcome to email myself, Tessa Withhorn, for any questions about the position or anything about the job description. But then, of course, Melissa Lanning is a really great resource as well to ask questions about the search process. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in the chat while Courtney is doing that as well, a link to our Workday job posting where you're able to submit your application. And so we do ask that you provide a cover letter, a resume or CV and the names and contact information for 3 references. So those are the things that we'll be looking for. And then the committee is going to begin screening applications by October 9th. But then, of course, the position is open until filled. So that's just simply when we will begin our process of screening the applications that we have at this point. So I'm going to go ahead. I don't see any questions in the Q&A yet or in the chat, but I will go ahead and just wait for anyone to answer any questions that they have. Thank you for your attention. We did have one question that came in prior that was about support for professional development. So I'll just expand a little bit on that. We don't necessarily have specific financial allocations, but we do have a travel committee where we submit requests. And so, professional development has really changed over time. There are a lot of free conferences. There are a lot of online webinars that, of course, don't really cut into your fund. But I will just say personally, I've been able to go to ACRL as soon as I came here. I have gone to several regional conferences as well, and I do plan on going to ALA in the spring. So we definitely have a lot of financial support for professional development, as well as other trainings and opportunities that the library passes along over time. So I did want to address that question. Does anyone else want to chime in about professional development and support?
Well, I could just add, Tessa, that, I think, and Melissa mentioned this as well, that I think we have a good track record for being supportive of people developing professionally, learning the skills that they need to be successful and to also get promotion and tenure. And I think we have a very encouraging environment around people doing that. So I would just basically just emphasize the things that have already been said, that we really we hire people and we want them to be successful and feel like they're part of things. And probably the biggest thing that I do, or one, not maybe not the biggest, but one of the things that you hear about is in some job environments, people may feel sort of alone in the tenure process, or they may feel alone in terms of not being able to get out into the professional development community, going to conferences, networking with other librarians. I think that our culture and our organizational structure is set up very well to support people and make sure that they don't feel like they are isolated or going through these processes without the support that they need.
Thank you. And I want to move on to a question that I did receive in the chat. So someone is wondering about the importance of a strong STEM background. And I do just want to point again to the job ad that it's not even a preferred qualification. So I do not have a background in STEM. I have a bachelor's in English and a master's in library science. So we do ask that someone has a master of library science or master's equivalent. So the committee would weigh the person's experiences based on their application materials. So I will just say that I have found a lot of success in connecting to our STEM researchers and faculty. I think our faculty status lends very well to speaking to them as fellow researchers, but we are not expecting someone to come in with a lot of STEM, formal education and STEM backgrounds, but of course someone who would be eager to learn about engineering research and engage with researchers in their field. Is there anything else anyone wants to add for that point?
Well, not to always add things, but just to build on that, we are seeking to hire people who are enthusiastic about the work, want to learn, want to collaborate and develop their ideas over time. We are not seeking someone who already has all of the answers figured out, who already, I mean, it's great to bring ideas to the table, of course, but we're seeking people who, for this job, candidates for this job, and for any job really that we hire for in our department, who are, just excited about being here and learning. We do not expect everybody to have things figured out on day one. That's just not realistic, and it's not really a good way for somebody to come into a job. So we're here to support growth over time.
I'm not seeing anything. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I can open the camera first,
if you'd
if
like.
you don't mind. Yeah, thank you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mohammed Shahata. Right now, I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the bioengineering department. I have been here in Louisville for 9 years. I got my master's degree when I joined the bioimaging lab in 2014, and I got my master's degree from electrical computer engineering in 2016, and then directly pursued my PhD in computer science, and I got my PhD from computer science in August 2022. Directly, I was hired as a postdoctoral in bioengineering. from January 2023, which I'm in right now, this position. I used to have teaching load, research load, service load, but it looks like for me, because I also have applied to another job in the library, but it's the Legion Library with a hospital library. I want to know exactly what would be the difference between this one and the hospital library. It looks like for me, the hospital library will be more engaging with the medical collaborators from the medical school. Also, I have no idea about using the LibGuide, but I have some other experience in using, for example, the overlay LaTeX for reference organizing, and I have some other many technical skills as I'm specialist in the AI in healthcare. So I'm not sure if these technicalities I'm talking about will be the best fit for that position or not. For me, it looks like the position is more like 80% of surface and 20% of research, right? To give you the enough room for yourself to get promotion in your tenure track career from assistant to associate to a full professor. So hopefully my question is clear enough. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
definitely. And I can just
I
say a few
appreciate that.
words, but I will also give it over to Melissa. So, I am familiar with the hospital librarian search, and I think that position is really a lot of biomedical reference and instruction as well. But this position would be more directly with our Speed School of Engineering, so liaising with them and doing outreach with them. And I will say, yes, 80% of service would be what it would be, those traditional reference instruction and outreach activities. But Melissa, do you want to chime in and say more about the differences between those positions?
Sure. The hospital librarian position is really working more with like nurses in the hospital environment or other healthcare professionals, whereas I think this position is more focused on the academic enterprise, and that's more on the clinical enterprise. So that I think, in brief, is one of the main differences between the two positions. The other position probably also for a variety of reasons. I mean, this is a tenure track position, that one is not. So it will be more emphasis on the research component. Since you've been here and you've been in the U of L environment, that you know that every unit has their own standards for performance in achievement for research service, the operational. What we call librarianship is what other units would call teaching. And that's where the bulk of, our work, when we do annual work plans, that's where the bulk of our work is. So we have our own standards for achievement in those areas, which would look very different from the speed schools or some of the other places that you may be more familiar with. But we do operate, under the same general minimum guidelines that the university has for any of the units. If you go to our webpage, you can actually find our standards. I could even maybe look for it and drop it in the chat, but so that you could see kind of what's required. But those are kind of the differences. This is more of an academic position.
Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, thank you for the prompt response and for the answering clarification. Just like continuing to my question, for myself, I'm more like a researcher person, and surface, I can do a lot of surface as well. But for myself, like during my career here at the University of Louisville, since my master's and PhD and the postdoctoral experience right now, I love research, and I love getting like more and more publications, patents, and all of that stuff. Maybe from my CV, you will discover that when I apply, I have like more than 70 technical publications in journals, conferences, annual meetings, and book chapters, and I have 4 granted use patents. What I was looking for, will I have this opportunity in this position as well? I mean, like, if the 20% room for the research is not enough, can this like be increased a little bit?
So I think that's kind of a complicated question, and it's a question that I appreciate. I would say there is negotiation with the supervisor and with the dean of the libraries, who ultimately approves annual work plans around how we allocate librarianship, research, and service, which would be like committee service and things like that. But I would say as a general approach to the position and the expectations of a 12-month faculty librarian position, which is what this is, it would not be research focused at the same level as like a typical faculty position in the Speed School or on the health sciences campus, or areas where they really, we might even say their primary career or primary responsibility is around producing research. That is part of what we do. It's certainly a requirement for tenure, but it would not be I would be hesitant to call it the person's primary job. The primary day-to-day activities of the position are going to be focused on really supporting the research activities of students and faculty, other students and faculty outside the library. The library is a unit that's focused on supporting the research activities of other parts of campus, in this case, the Speed School. And so that's really what the person is going to spend a good percentage of their time doing, as opposed to, conducting and publishing their own research. Again, that's part of the job, but it definitely, I don't think there's any way that it would definitely be the main part of a job like this. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's completely answered my question. But I believe for the official work time, after discussing that with the supervisor, I mean, like if I can put more effort for like after hour works or the weekends or holidays, if I need to work in a research with collaborators from different school of engineering or from the medical school, will that be fine with the supervision?
Well, it's a salaried faculty position, so I mean there is room for faculty members in the library to work off hours to do research or do basically allocate their work, because your relationship to the university as a faculty member is going to be based on fulfilling the work plan. How you fulfill the work plan, there's some flexibility to that, although we do have general service hours Monday through Friday where we would expect our librarians in the department to be working. Remote days are a possibility in the department as well. I can't remember if that was mentioned earlier, but I would be, I mean, just to be completely direct about the reality of what this position is, it's not going to be a position where, your primary job is going to be even on the weekends or, at night. Obviously people can do what they want, but it's not going to be focused around being a professional researcher where I work and collaborate and spend the majority of my time doing research. I know that's kind of the same answer I gave to the previous question, but I mean, just to be absolutely authentic in my answer, if someone is seeking a position where they are going to be spending the majority of their time doing like engineering research, this is this is not really the position that would be a good fit for that kind of work. I don't think. And Melissa or others may have comments about that, but as a supervisor in the department, our emphasis is going to be spending the majority of our time supporting other researchers and doing some of our own research as well, but not at the level of, my main job would be being a professional researcher where I publish and produce research in engineering. That's not what this job would be.
I did get one other question in the chat that I want to address, and that's about the timeline for hearing back about interviews after the initial screening. I would say this committee works fairly quickly, but Melissa, do you have a sense from how other searches have been run when they could expect to hear? I was going to say a few weeks, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Typically, and there are certain things that we haven't fully determined yet, but typically we do a first round kind of a screening interview, and those happen fairly quickly. I mean, Tessa is right; those happen within a few weeks. There's very little preparation that you would need to do. They're typically half an hour to an hour long, and it's just an opportunity for us to get to know more about you and for you to learn more about us. Our practice actually has been in recent years to even share the questions in advance, so you would you would know exactly what we were going to ask you. We've been doing those on Teams. And we will continue that practice for that first round. An area that we haven't determined yet is whether we will do the second round, the more in-depth interview with a small number of candidates in person or also on Teams. And we'll probably at a certain point along the way ask the people that we intend to interview what they prefer. So we're a little bit open-ended and uncertain about that. If we do Teams interviews, we could turn that around pretty quickly within 3-4 weeks at the most. If we're getting involved in travel, that could take a little bit longer to make happen. That second round of interviews also does require some preparation. We typically ask people to do a presentation. We assign a topic. So we like to give people, 2-3 weeks to prepare for those. I think I may be wrong about this, but I think Tessa is really hoping that we can wrap this up this calendar year, and that seems reasonable, assuming that we don't just stop working for some extended period of time, but that's not our usual practice.
I'll just add that I think the start time is negotiable with a successful candidate. Is that right, Melissa? I think we can't.
Absolutely. As part of that, for the successful candidate, there is this whole negotiation process with the dean that involves salary and relocation, fee, allowances, that sort of thing. But start date is one of the more negotiable aspects of that final conversation about the start date. So, I think, in fact, the university has a moratorium on hiring in December. So unless you're already on campus, we would not be able to hire somebody in December. It would have to be after the first of the year.
I know we only have a few more minutes. We were scheduled to go until 6:15, but of course, I'm available and others may be available to answer additional questions. But for those of you who have had their questions answered, I hope you have an enjoyable evening, and we hope to have applications from interested applicants as well. So I'll keep a lookout for any additional questions, but I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you again.